Alright, well, this is JT from RubberCityMotoring.com. This is going to be video 3 of the Torqhead install. Now, if you watch the previous 2 videos, which if you need to see them, just go back on the channel. They're uploaded fairly recently, depending on when you watch this, of course. The first one is sort of a summary overall of what is going to occur. The second one is disassembly. And this one we're going to start doing install. There's a few things I'm going to install in this video, and then we'll save some others for the next one. This one we're going to focus on the sensing unit, which bolts in place of the OptiSpark. The hub, which I'm not going to really go into a full hub installation. I actually did a video on that before, which I'll link below. But then the third piece is the coil packs, the 3 main components we'll say on this. None of those are overly difficult. The hub end of things is, we'll say, the trickiest, but if you follow the instructions, you sort of do it to factory specs, you have the proper tools, you'll be fine. All 3 of these components, be careful with them. You don't want to necessarily, drop any of these things, bang them around. It's all, I don't want to say delicate. I mean, it's tough automotive parts and it's good parts, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to be rough on this stuff. Just similar how you treat an OptiSpark. You don't want to bang it around or anything like that. You want to install it and do it right. So take your time, follow the Torqhead specs and instructions, and hopefully, this will help you, guide you through the process. So here we go. So this is the Torqhead 24X sensing unit. Now, this is kind of, if you look, this is what replaces the OptiSpark in the very position of the OptiSpark. Same shape. This is basically what's going to pick up through this brass piece. There's a sensor here. This is what's going to pick up the new hub. If we look at the back, very similar to an OptiSpark. It even has the 3 different spots on it. My crankshaft is a later style, the pin drive, not a spline drive. And you can see the circular, and then the oblong looking oval one. That's where the pin's gonna go from the crankshaft. So you have to kind of read the instructions. It's very simple though. You just, if you've ever installed an OptiSpark, it makes sense, but if you haven't, just read the instructions carefully, follow this video, and you'll be fine. Another top tip, there's some O-rings, 2 of them to be exact on here. Put a light coating of oil just so it slides in easier. If you have trouble lining this up, try again. Don't force it, don't hammer it. This should pretty much slide on fairly simply, and you reuse your factory OptiSpark bolts, torqued to manufacturer specs. I believe they're like a 10mm socket, but this needs to seat first. Don't ever use bolts to drive it on. Like, it should just stick right on there, and then you use the bolts to secure it. You never like get it on there with an inch and then use bolts to pull it on. Be very gentle with this piece. It is like billet solid machined metal, pretty tough stuff, but you don't want to drop this. This is a big part of this this setup. So even without the bolts fully secured in there, and it's flush. I mean, it did a final, like, you got past one O-ring, and then if you lined up your pin right, you got past the other O-ring, and boom, it seats right on there. So now you just set your bolts in there. If you want to use some Loctite on your bolts, you can, that's fine. But that's pretty much it. It's gonna sit right in that position. Let me pull back here and give you an overall view of it. It's got 2 connector plugs on there, which mine came pre-installed. The instructions tell you if they're not installed, you install them pretty much now. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's replace the good old OptiSpark. So this is the Torqhead coil pack bracket. This is going to be the passenger side setup, so it's really going to go kind of like this with the big connector on the back, coils 2, 4, 6, 8. These are truck coils, GM truck coils, GM part. Nothing fancy as far as that goes, but they do have the most energy, the most millijoules if you want to get technical. Torqhead designs the bracket around the coils, which means they didn't just, slap something together. They really put some thought into this, and it's a solid setup, we'll say. It's not like they took some stock L bracket and just threw some random coils on. There's a lot of thought involved in this setup. But overall, you can tell it's very well done. You can see all the wiring underneath there is hidden. This is the valve cover mount setup, and if you look, there are 2 mounting points. The outermost bolts on the valve cover are the ones that hold this down, and you can reuse the stock bolts. One advantage of a coil pack setup, and I mean this is kind of like a duh moment, you don't really think of this. You have 8 coils, so if one of your coils fails, say on the number 6 cylinder, you can still get home. Whereas on the factory setup, you had 1 coil which went to the Opti. If that coil failed, you were kind of screwed. So interesting thing there, but not so much. Like as in, I guess that makes sense. It's just one of those things. It's so simple, it's clever, and you wouldn't think of that. At least I didn't at first. So, but that's the valve cover mount. They do sell a intake mount setup, and it actually looks a lot cleaner than this. I kind of prefer that look, but with my headers and the wire routing and different things, I feel like this would be more functional for me. And on top of it, it's just going to be easier once sort of this is all done to sort of look at on the video here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this bolted on here and show you how this goes. So these little brackets, if you want to call them, where the holes go through, they aren't exactly easy to get to once it's on the car. So I found that if I take the bolts and I kind of run them through there before you get the bracket in position, the whole coil pack setup, it kind of helps you do it, because putting it up there and then trying to find your way down through here seems almost impossible. But that's me. You might find a different way to do this. You can reuse the factory bolts. I felt like I would be fancy, and I got some new ARP, and then turned out you can't even really see them. So it doesn't really matter. You can use your stockers, or you can go buy new ones and waste $20 like I did. But either way, you just snug it down there, and you kind of work your way around everything. There's lots of hoses and wires and things on the passenger side. Driver's side didn't have as much, but still some things in the way. So I'm going to get this on there right now. If we look here, I pretty much have them on the passenger side. Little tip I found, the wiper motor and the heater hoses back there are super close to these valve cover mounted coil packs. These plugs here on the wiper motor, if you undo those and kind of push them up out of the way, that gives you a little bit of room in there. Heater hoses, I don't think you should mess with those, because you can see it back there, just barely touching the last coil pack. But that's pretty much it. I did find that these brackets and this setup kind of, I don't know, it makes you over torque a little bit on the valve cover, so just be aware of that. But they just get snugged, and you gotta make sure you don't crunch your valve covers down, because they are just tin and they hold only so much, so only so much torque. But there they are. I mean, they allow the provision here for oil filler, the not PCV, but that crankcase vent over there is perfectly cut out. Pretty nice, nice overall. Let me give you the overhead view of the coils mounted. Passenger side was pretty much by far the easiest amount, but driver side's over here, or passenger side's over here. Driver side was the easiest, passenger side was the hardest. Sorry if I reversed that. So there you go, coils are mounted, and just make sure if you do this you put the big huge connector towards the back. They're labeled and very easy to not screw up.
So due to some audio issues with the camera, I'm doing a little voiceover here on this. You'll notice the spacer I'm about to put on here, it has the keyway on it. Now your engine most likely won't have the key on the crank, so you have to install that. That comes with the kit. Your keyed spacer though has to go on past both keys. There's two keys on the crank, and if you watch this here, I'm basically doing the normal hub install. I have the full threaded rod going into the crank with the nut and the spacers. As it slowly moves onto the crank, you know, I had a slight worry that it might be close to hitting the sensor there. You can see the goldish bronze sensor. So I took it off there, and what that did too is it gave me a good view through the top square of where it needs to be lining up. But overall, if you follow along here and you pull it on straight and even, you shouldn't have any problems.
So after some cussing, fighting, just dealing with the hub on here, it's on. Let me show you here. It wasn't like it was hard, but I don't know. Ever since I've had this new 383, the hub has always been just like my thing that like makes me nervous. I don't know why. I said it in my hub install video when I built the engine initially. There's just something about it that I don't know. It's just like, eek, am I gonna rip the threads out of the crank? Am I gonna, you know, ruin something internally? It just kind of freaks me out. Now, if you've done it 50 times, you're probably laughing at me right now, but you know, it's just one of those things. I don't know. So here's what we have. You can see the hub is pushed on all the way. Your main thing you want to get here, and I don't know if this is going to show well. Let me see if I can get it down in here. You want that silver wheel. You can see the reluctor, the sensor wheel, whatever you want to call that. That should be roughly centered up in that square opening there. And I'm hoping this comes through. I'll sort of adjust the lighting in the post here just so you can get the best view of this. But I didn't have it quite all the way, and you know, what you're going to see on the next video is the install of the sensor on top of there. But you have to get that properly in the right place, because first off, your sensor won't line up. Second off, your damper harmonic balance won't go on and have the right belt path. So keep that in mind as you're doing that. Alright, so what we had in this video was the coils, the sensing unit which replaced the OptiSpark, and the hub. I'm going to end it there because I'm kind of trying to chunk this together, so you know, if you need a specific thing, you don't have to watch how to put the coil packs on for your next one. So next video, I'm going to be talking about the sensor alignment and, you know, getting all that dialed in and kind of going from there. So thank you for watching. RubberCityMotoring.com. This is the Torqhead install, Torqhead.com. Check them out if you have questions on this for your application. But you know, it's got probably 2 to 3, 4 more videos on this, and then the final initial startup. So we're getting there on the Impala. Thanks for watching. See you next time.